Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're just going to give everyone a few minutes to start to trickle in until we get started. But if you want to put where you're from in the chat, please go for it. We got sunny London. We got NYC. That's where I am. Anyone else?
Calling in from Seattle, Washington here.
Get the full spread. Barcelona. Nice.
I know a few people out there.
What do you think, Ryan? You want to get started? You want to give another minute?
Yeah, we can pull up the slides and then and get the intro going and the agenda. And I think by the time we kick off, we'll be in a good spot. Oh,
Sure.
Ethiopia. All right,
Oh, wow. Cool. So I can share the screen.
go for it.
Sharing. All right. Can you see this?
Yes, sir.
All right. We got 19 people. Yeah. All right. Take it away.
All right. Hey, thank you everybody for joining. By way of agenda, we'll kick off just quick intros to the presenters here today. We'll go through introductions to CPM. Some of you may be familiar, some of you might not. We'll talk about AI in CPM and specifically FP&A. We'll talk through some social proof, some examples of clients that are finding success and like benchmark versus that too, if you're going to be implementing a system and leveraging AI. Then also key takeaway of like, hey, how does Abacum work with Intacct today? What's that native integration look like? And then we'll actually go through a product walkthrough, and you can see some of those relevant examples. Um, Outcomes that we should all get is learnings around how CPM can streamline FP&A, seeing some real examples of live AI and FP&A today within a product and platform, and then also how easy it should be to connect to Intacct to enhance your data and make some of your core finance use cases much easier. By way of agenda, I'm Ryan. I'm the head of partnerships here at Abacum. 20 years of experience in SaaS. The last 7 years have been in FP&A software. So I'll be taking us through the demo today and talking a little bit about AI. With me, I've got Jake.
Yeah, hi everyone. Nice to well, not necessarily meet you all, but speak with you all about Abacum today. So my name is Jake Lunny. I work at a company called E78. So we're a partner of Abacum's. I oversee our finance technology practice, so that's our partnerships with companies like Abacum. But my background is all in FP&A. So for those of you who are working in FP&A, building models, doing budgeting, pulling data from systems, I've been there, done that a lot in my career. I've been doing that for almost 15 years. And so, part of this partnership, we're really excited to show you potentially how you can streamline some of that stuff, right? And actually use some legitimate AI capabilities to just speed up a lot of that data consolidation, commentary writing, collaboration, right? And get you out of the manual world of Excel. So before we jump to the next slide and actually talk through, right, zoom out a little bit here and just talk through what an actual CPM is, for those of you who are not familiar with it, we have a short poll, two questions we want to ask, just to get a sense of your knowledge of CPM/EPMs. So we have two questions here. First is just how familiar are you with CPM/EPMs? Three choices: not familiar at all. You're only using Excel, Google Sheets. Two is you are familiar, but you've never used one. And then three is, you're familiar and you have used one before. And then the second question is really just on what you're using now in your current role. So maybe if you used a CPM before in the past, but maybe you're not using it now. We're curious to know if you're, for most of your FP&A stuff, are you relying on Excel or Google Sheets, or are you on an EPM? And if you are, is it fully rolled out and implemented and adopted, or are you still kind of in the steps of getting that there, or potentially not, using it as fully as you'd like? So let me know when the answers are compiled. All right. So for question number one, it looks like we have about 38% is not familiar at all, only used Excel and Google Sheets. 44, another 44 is familiar, and then another 20 is familiar and have used an EPM, CPM before. So only 20% of the people out here attending, only three of the 16 who answered this the poll have actually used an EPM or CPM. So the next couple slides will help to demonstrate what it is we're talking about and how it's supposed to make your life a little bit easier. And then for question number two, which I kind of figured it would fall in this line as well, is most everyone here who answered at least is using Excel or Google Sheets, which again, very common. I come from that world as well. And then another small chunk is yes, you have an EPM or CPM at your organization, but you haven't rolled it out fully. And then only one person said out of the 16 who answered said that yes, you're using it and it's well implemented into delivering value. So that's great. That means you're a good audience to see what we have here. So let me jump to the next slide. So again, before we do a demo, before we start showing you all the bells and whistles of what this platform can do, I want to just, again, take you through what I imagine, because again, I come from this world of FP&A, what a lot of you are living in, when you're using Excel or Google Sheets as your environment for FP&A. So, given this is a Sage-based, webinar, I assume most of you are on Sage, if not all of you. But there's likely other source systems that you're pulling data from. So, if you're working for a healthcare company, this could be something like an EMR. Maybe you have a CRM in place. Maybe you have a data warehouse. Maybe an HRIS. Point is, lots of different systems, right, that house key data for you to do analytics and tell and really understand what's going on in your organization. But if you're relying on Excel, right, to do all the financial modeling, most likely an FP&A team, you or someone else that you work with, or a combination of the two, is having to go to each of these systems, right, and pull data manually from them every single month. There's likely manual transformations and mapping and just cleanup that has to occur, creating relationships between the different data sets. And yes, you can build tools that help to speed that up, but I would imagine a lot of that process can be manual. And then loading that data into a centralized Excel financial model that's used for forecasting out revenue and expenses and balance sheet and other KPIs, right? Again, a somewhat manual process. If you then want to distribute those results out to, functional leaders or budget owners or sales leaders, right? At least what I used to do is I take a small slice of my model, right? The part of the business that's only relevant to them, their headcount, their revenue, their expenses. And I've got to, take it out of my model or update it separately and then email it out, right? And then if they want to give me changes to a forecast or, to the budget, right? They're filling out their Excel sheet and then they're emailing it back to me and then I'm reconsolidating that back manually into my Excel-based financial model, right? Then maybe I'm publishing the results into a PowerPoint, which again is requiring me and paste graphs and charts from Excel into my PowerPoint. And then I'm likely distributing that same PowerPoint back out to maybe some subset of this audience or the same audience that I worked with earlier in the month to compile the data, right? All of these individual icons are typically individual Excel files, right? And over the months and the years, they can compound into dozens, if not hundreds of different versions with crazy names like V3B, Jake's best case scenario, do not delete, stuff like that, right? It becomes very difficult to track and know what assumption changes were made and what, right? What do we call this? We call this Excel hell, right? So what is an EPM? And again, not just Abacum, but obviously we're here to talk about Abacum, but what is an EPM or CPM, how does it help, right, in this situation? So you have these same source systems, right? But the first thing is that instead of having to manually pull data from these systems each month, we create automated integrations between these source systems and Abacum or other CPM itself, right? And we can create, let's say there's data coming out of Sage Intacct, and there's also data coming out of, say, Salesforce or something, right? That you need to map and pull together, right? We can build those relationships, and we can use AI to help to at least establish the baseline of the extraction, transformation, and loading process to get the data kind of synced up, right? And then every month, rather than a human having to go in and pull and update and actualize your model, the data is coming over on a schedule, right? Second is again, rather than having to, if I want to provide results or share budgeting templates, right, with functional leaders who have a stake in the business, again, rather than emailing them, disconnected, isolated, disparate Excel files, I can actually give them custom access to Abacum And I can give them access, though, as an administrator to only the slice of the business relevant to them, right? Their headcount, their expenses, their revenue, the pieces that they need to manage. And if they make changes, again, in a scenario that I give them access to as the administrator, that those changes can then automatically sync back up into the master model, right? And affect the revenue forecast or the expense forecast, or personnel forecast, uh, in the way that I've built the model, right? So it's a bidirectional and automated connection. They can also log in, and I myself can log in and see, dashboards and, BVA reporting, right? And actually do drill throughs and see the underlying data, right? As opposed to having to publish all of this stuff into Excel and PowerPoint. But there is an add-in, and I forgot to add in here. There's also an add-in for Google Suite as well, so G Sheets, Google Slides as well. But I can pull the data down into Excel or into Google Sheets if I want. And again, that's also bidirectional. So if I make changes there, I can push data back up into the model. So all of this is living inside of a single instance of Abacum, as opposed to a bunch of different Excel files, right, that are all disconnected. And it all sits on top of a very powerful AI engine, which we'll show you here shortly. So the point is, right, is taking you out of Excel, having an online web-based ecosystem in which the data is, centralized, but then the planning process is then decentralized, but the connection back to the kind of the mothership, if you will, is managed in an environment that is much more contained, less error prone, doesn't have crazy names, version names, and lives, in an ecosystem that makes it very easy to publish final results and run scenarios. So now look, AI. Everyone's talking about AI these days, right? It's probably the biggest buzzword around. But we're going to show you here shortly in the demo the true AI capabilities that Abacum has. A lot of platforms are talking about it. I won't mention any, but I work across other platforms as well. And I can tell you, I have not seen, at least in the FP&A space, as sophisticated of AI capabilities as I've seen with Abacum. And so we don't need to talk through every single example. You'll see a lot of this in the demo, but right, but what are we using it for, right? We're using it to handle, the different connections that we're making to different platforms. So maybe back in the day, we used to just pull data from our accounting system. Now we're pulling data from a CRM, a data warehouse, an ERP, and we need to create relationships between the data in these different systems. So it helps with establishing those things, right? It helps with writing variance commentary. I mean, you'll see here shortly that when you actually, feed it data, right, and you want it to say, publish me, the best, the charts that represent the top 10 KPIs coming out of this data set, and then write variance commentary for me that maybe I need to tweak, but at least give me a baseline. You'll see that as well. And then really specifically on the forecasting side, right? Predictive forecasting, using more sophisticated algorithms to actually use historical data and trend it out and then flag things that maybe do not align with the trend that budget contributors are making, to just, again, not using AI to fully replace the job of an FP&A team, but using it to augment and streamline a lot of the things that they're doing, so that you're spending less time pulling data and manipulating data and more time actually analyzing data and doing, true business analytics that can help, steer the business. So again, we'll see some of these. I won't talk about every single one of these, but right, all of us are familiar with some of these things, right? Forecasting, goal seek, right? Sensitivity, anomaly detection, and the capabilities here. The one that I'm most excited about when I first saw Abacum was just the ability to summarize data and provide, key takeaways, drill. I mean, all of us have been there trying to figure out the vendor that drove X, account to be higher and why and all this stuff. I mean, it's a huge time suck, right? So having at least a tool that can provide a baseline of that is immensely powerful, right? Using different forecasting mechanisms to project out, sales or expenses, having goal seek in place to not be able to just do it in an individual cell like you're doing it in Excel, right? But actually to say, hey, this is overall what we're trying to do here, right? Can you manipulate multiple formulas, multiple accounts at once to actually get to the final outcome we want? What's it going to take on an expense basis, on a COGS basis, a margin basis, right, to get to the end result, as opposed to a cell by cell, calculation is hugely powerful. So what are people saying, right? People are, in terms of actual clients who have used this thing, right? So the biggest thing here, right, is the idea is that it's going to give you time back to focus again on actual analytical, value add work, as opposed to pulling data, collecting data, analyzing, the just the pure like qualitative aspects of, what vendor drove what, et cetera, right? It allows you to spend more time with budget owners, right? Actually get budget owners in this tool, speed up the reporting, process, speed up the budgeting process. I mean, I can imagine, I can remember how many 3 or 4 month budgeting cycles I went through, right? Imagine doing that in a month, a month and a half because of just the speed of data consolidation being so much faster. So, you know, I know there's a lot here, right? We went through a lot, showed you. Hopefully, this provides a good baseline. I know that you're probably anxious to see the demo, so I'm going to turn it over to Ryan to take us through the remaining slides, and then we'll jump into the demo, and then we'll have time at the end for questions. So I'll stop sharing and take it away, Ryan.
All right, thank you very much. I will share. All right, you should see my slideshow, right? All right, perfect.
Yes.
We talked about a lot of use cases. Listen, there's hundreds of clients using Abacum today and across all different industries. We've mentioned healthcare earlier. We also have a lot of clients in tech, financial services, banking, nonprofit, biotech, life sciences, CPG. So platform's extremely flexible. And then it goes from anywhere from like maybe a high growth company that's going from 50 to 150 employees, but we've got a lot of clients between like 100 and a couple thousand employees and 5,000, 6,000 employees. I think our largest client has about 15,000. The point of calling that out, there's a lot of complexity, right? And specifically with Intacct, you've got a lot of entities, you've got a lot of dimensions to handle within your ERP. Now try to translate that to a planning platform that needs to calculate all those in your model, and it starts to get a lot harder. And that's a huge differentiator for Abacum. We can handle unlimited amounts of dimensionality, and that's why these businesses are choosing to implement Abacum today. Why would companies choose Abacum and Intacct? First of all, it's a native integration. I'll show you the 6 steps it takes to set it up here in a second, but it's literally a connection, and then it's a live connection you only have to set once. And we're connecting to all the dimensions, all the entities, multi-book accounting too, multi-currency, right? A lot of different, basically as robust as you can possibly get with that integration. And it does take 6 steps. Here's very tactical. These are the steps it takes. So when an Abacum client and Intacct client come on board, the first call is about 30 minutes. The establishment of the connection is made, and then all the data is flowing in. We might connect to the CRM, some of the other data sources too, like your HRIS platform. And then you can start managing your data, building your models, building your reports. I already mentioned, some of the key wins, but really bringing that data from the ERP and now combining it with a live data feed from your CRM like Salesforce or HubSpot, which we have deep integrations with, or your HRIS platform, maybe it's Rippling or Paychex or ADP or Paylocity. Right, there's many different systems that we can connect to. And then now you can start collaborating on your actuals or your BVAs across different department heads. In fact, some of the biggest, which I think are pretty trivial, but I think it's really non-trivial, is just getting your business users into the platform to self-serve for departmental budgeting, right? Just knocking out some of these easy use cases first, so it starts to free up time for more of your strategic finance. And I already mentioned multidimensionality, but again, unlimited dimensionality and flexibility, and that's a huge key factor when you're connecting to Intacct, because that's one of Intacct's big differentiators too, and one of the reasons why you're going to want to move on to an ERP like Intacct. You saw some slides too last slide before I get in about our client base, but it's not just FP&A. We do all the operational modeling around it, and we're dedicated and focused on the mid-market space. So from time to value and ease of use, also pricing and packaging too fits the mid-market space. So there's a lot of different barriers that can come into play, like ease of use and time to value and pricing. And I think we've been very thoughtful at putting that all together and giving you a very, very modern, beautiful platform that also gets all the business users in. So let's take a look at it. Okay. So I've logged in. I already logged in. And I've just got brought into my what we call spaces, which is like a big canvas. Kind of looks like a dashboard right now, but you'll see there's also tasks in here that I can assign to people. In fact, I've got this departmental budgeting area. I'm going to come back to that in a second. On the left side, this is an area for the admins. You've got spaces, you've got your models. Actually, we'll take a look at models and show you how you can do some AI forecasting. You've got versions and scenarios, so you can roll your forecast forward every month. You can do as many scenarios as you want. How do you manage all those dimensions? You got a section for that. We'll take a look at the data coming in too, because you actually have an ETL layer that gives you the ability to manipulate the data and standardize the dimensions across your different platforms. And then how do those integrations work? In fact, let's go on the integrations first. So we'll automatically connect to Intacct. So it's a click of a button. There's a few steps that you set up in Intacct, and then you authenticate. As soon as you authenticate, the connection's made and all the data is flowing in. You might want to pull in your Salesforce data or your HubSpot data. We go down to your standard and custom objects, anything you need, very granular levels of data there, as well as your headcount data. Like this one's connected to 3 different HR platforms right now, payroll systems. We also have integrations that we can pull in from like different data warehouses too. So you might have custom product data, or there's systems that might not have native integrations, but we can easily push that to the data warehouse and pull it in programmatically. So you set it up once and it'll just feel like a just native integration that you don't have to continue to bother with. Once that data flows in, you have this data set section, okay? And this is where there's that Intacct data, right? I'm going to click on the, you also see I've got NetSuite coming in. You could have 5 different general ledgers connected at once. So you can roll up all your financials across different entities and different general ledgers. As soon as that comes in with Intacct, I've set up a sync so I can have it load every day, every month, every hour, whatever I want. And then I can see that data coming in, right? So I can see all of the journal entries. There's a lot of information coming in. You know, you might have the memo fields. And in this case, I've started to also define like what I want to be dimensions. So I can just start clicking on the columns, make those dimensions. Also, I might want to transform my data too. And transforming the data, in this case, I have set up like a status section. I can start to group things into small, medium, large buckets. I can also, I think for the status, I used just an approve logic for everything. And then for entity, I've started to bucket that. So you have the ability to do joins, if statements, whatever you need with your data to start to standardize it. But then another piece of functionality, which we'll talk about here, is the AI classifier. So you can start to have models that clean your data too. A couple of key examples are, one is if you guys ever use like Brex or Ramp, they'll put the vendors in the memo field, and then you're having to grab it and drop it in to your vendor column. Well, the AI classifier can start to automatically look for that vendor information that hits the memo field and automatically tag the correct vendor in the vendor dimension for you. Or you have people that misspell vendors sometimes when they come in and it impacts your reporting. AI classifier, you're not going to write logic to catch every single misspelling, but the AI classifier can now catch the misspelling on any variation, right? So if somebody puts GGLE instead of Google as the vendor, it'll catch that, alert you, can auto correct it, or have you confirm and then correct it. So those are a couple examples of how some folks will use the AI classifier in the ETL layer, many other examples too that we can get into. All right, now once all that data is brought in, I've also gone in and standardized like my dimensions across my data sets. I have all my reporting that starts to get set up. In fact, I was starting to get into the departmental budgeting. So when we think about where do we start to save time, and we want to get other people collaborating with the system, first of all, how does it look with these dimensions now? I can start to drill down from the dimensions that are coming in from Intacct. I can see clearly like how you might interact with this, so very responsive. But also like how can I set up these tables? Maybe I don't want the dimension structure to be a certain way, it's really easy to build a new table. Each variable is a row. We were just looking at, I think, the sales and marketing rows. I might want to restructure that. And maybe I want to just bring vendor to the top, right? Or maybe I want department and then vendor there. So now I can easily see here, let's grab department, drop that up there. So I can see very, very quick to respond. There's marketing, and now I'm drilling all the way down to the vendor level, right? And not only are we pulling in the actuals, but we're also forecasting at that granular level of detail. I'm not going to save that. And you'll see also these spaces. I've got a lot of different views set up. This is my kind of battle station as the finance leader, so I can monitor. Like I've got some formatting that's conditional to alert me for maybe areas that I might need to dig into more on the expenses. And let's say this looks off or it's over, I can easily comment at somebody. When I comment at somebody, that'll save it within the cell. It'll automatically alert them, right, to come back and respond. It can Slack them, it'll email them as well. So you start to now have communication that can happen around this information, and it'll be saved on the cell level. Again, I've got the tasks built in, and this is the finance view, but let's say I'm switching hats to now like the marketing department view, and I want marketing. This is what I hear a lot from finance leaders. I was like, I want marketing to be self-service. They're the ones spending the most money. I want them to see where they're at versus their budget in real time, not after the month when we've already spent all the money or we're over budget. And now this gives the marketing team the ability to come in real time, drill through to the journal level detail, so they don't need to message finance or accounting for that information, right? Again, make comments. Once those comments happen, right, they'll all be saved. I can resolve these comments. Now that I see that I'm over budget, I might want to make some adjustments, right? So I can come in and make some adjustments to my budget. I can actually request new vendors here too. Once I request those vendors, I can change the status to like send it up to finance or accounting for review. You'll see we've got full workflows built in for approvals and status checks. Once that gets approved, it'll get added to the budget. So when we think about Jake's story earlier, all the different Excel files floating around, having to manually upload things back and forth, this is a great example of now where the operators can live within a system that's very user-friendly. They can communicate with you, they can put in requests, and when those requests get approved, they get loaded back into your annual operating plan or the new version of the reforecast that you're updating, right? Jake, you were
And I'll
going to say
just
something?
add, yeah, I'll just add to that. As I understand, as an FP&A team, there's nothing worse than coming in and someone messing with your model, breaking formulas, but that's not what you have to worry about here, right? I mean, there's strict access controls, so you can, again, as I said earlier, ensure that they're only seeing the data and information relevant to them, but also around the versioning, right? So to Ryan's point, making changes, it's not going to be done in a say a locked budget version or something. It can be done in a what if scenario or a budget V1, something like that. And then there's a pencils down time, right, where those changes are locked, and then the next iteration of the budget can be rolled out. So you don't have to worry about people coming in and making changes to a locked budget or a locked forecast, something like that. It's you tightly control those things as an administrator. The second thing I'll say is I also recognize that there's a change management aspect to this, right? Folks are used to Excel, but at the end of the day, this is an online spreadsheet the same way an online Excel is or an online Google Sheet is, something like that. And it does require folks to get used to it, of course. But over time, if the FP&A team starts to champion this, and then you get a couple of the power, I know there's always users out there that are, budget contributors out there that are maybe more comfortable than others and messing around in Excel. Those same folks will probably be the ones who take to this platform more quickly than the others. But over time, right, if someone's able to log in online, simply punch in their numbers to an online-based spreadsheet, whatever they're budgeting, it makes their life a lot easier, as opposed to emailing back and forth Excel files. So those are the two things I would add, because I know that there can be some concerns with an FP&A team messing around with your model and making changes to a version. So not a concern here.
Yeah, and this is a good example of not only I gave marketing the ability to review their budget, submit new requests. I've even created a space here where they can see different versions, the target, the forecast, and the bold forecast, and start to play with those scenarios. And this won't impact anything else. I've created a new version that allows them to like flex those scenarios, flex their spend, and then it already has the assumptions built in for conversion rates. So at the end of the day, if I start to choose to increase spend on Google Ads, it can show me how that might convert to NQLs and SQLs and revenue at the end of the day, as I'm thinking about making new requests for more spend or new vendors. Right, I can test that against how that's going to look against my operational model and the KPIs that I'm tracking. I'm going to go back here to the performance review. As I'm looking at this performance review, we've got a lot of different KPI cards I might be paying attention to. These are all customizable. And so depending on your industry, there's different KPIs you care about, right? And those are things that you can have front and center. Then you also, so we've talked about workflow and you've seen reminders and tasks, right? And the spaces that curate that process. But then there's also your static reporting. You got to do it every month, and you need to share it out with the team. You need to write commentary on it. And this is an example of like, maybe I need to write commentary on this product chart. This is another way where AI can help you, where it makes it very integrated within your process. And you can go to any chart, any table, and ask the system to start writing this analysis for you. You can make it shorter, smaller. You guys have used, most of you probably have used generative AI at this point. And post that summary and then edit it and share it out. Now, once I have that space done, then I can save it. So now I've got my August close done. I can share this out too. I can say, hey, I want to invite somebody into the space. Maybe you get unlimited read-only users in Abacum. So maybe I want to share this out with people and have them come in and they'll have security access through their email. Or maybe I want to print and download this. It's like very nicely formatted PDF I can email out to folks as well. Okay, another quick use case that I want to touch on within the platform, because every business is impacted by headcount. And how do you now marry that Intacct and accounting data with your headcount data that's coming in from your HR system? And that's something that you can do very nicely within that in the platform. And most of the times, like 60 to 70% of your expenses are through your headcount costs. And so I've created nice views here. And by the way, to create a view, it's just a /. I can just add a new table, chart, versions, data sets, headers. I can embed images. I can embed other videos, and I'll show you some examples of that. So it's very easy to build these up. Once you build up a table, it can be used in other places. It'll save the comments and stuff in the other spaces for other department heads if you want to. And then from an approval workflow for headcount, right? Now I've got a place where somebody can come in and that department head can see their current budget, headcount plan. They can come in and they can say, I want to request potentially a new CSM. Add that CSM in. As soon as they add it in, again, review, goes to finance or another person to approve. Once it's approved, it can automatically update the budget, all the costs, the taxes, the benefits, everything gets updated at that point too. I can see my assumptions too. I might have cost assumptions for, in this case, I've got a lot of different FX rates that I might want to update, right? Or pay increases that I might want to build in for assumptions for my department as well. So you can really, again, give self-service to your team and operators to engage easier with you. Another AI capability is auto reconciliation. So if you go and hire somebody in the HR platform, we'll recognize it, we'll match it up with the planned hire, and it'll prompt you to auto reconcile that and take that out, right? Which is a pain in the butt, especially if you're doing that manually. So another way that you can save some time with AI. Let's get into the modeling. So modeling, this is like, you can see all these different, I've got the P&L, the balance sheet, the cash flow statement, got my sales plan, my headcount costs, my KPIs. Let's just go to like the US P&L. And these are all interdependent, right? You can see I've got actuals and then I've got my cut over here. So forecast is going to the right. Currently, I have a lot of different versions of this. Each version like this active forecast I'm working on also has a few different scenarios too. So I can create a new scenario, it'll clone it, and now I can go change some of the assumptions. I can compare one scenario to the other really quick. So it makes scenario planning and all the reporting and variance analysis done in minutes, right? Within the spaces that I can share out and allow other people to add assumptions into the scenarios without breaking the model. If I want, I can go apply an assumption at the version level and it'll cascade it through all the scenarios too. So I can change one scenario independently and compare it to another, or if I want to make a change and have it impact all the scenarios, like a hiring assumption or a change, right? I don't have to go into each individual scenario and update each one. So it makes it quick for you to run your scenario planning. Also, when you're thinking about a rolling forecast, you're just setting the switchover date. It can automatically trigger when you close the books, or you can set a date and it'll flow the actuals through, and it'll, depending on how you've set up your formulas, in fact. So let's take a look at that. So if I've set up some of my formulas to say, like, I don't have a forecast for R&D, right? So I've got actuals, right? I've defined actuals, and actuals is going to be looking at expenses by department from the general ledger. In this case, it's pulling it in from NetSuite and Intacct, right? I can even see which dimensions did I activate for this too. So you'll see I've got just vendor dimensions. So if I click under this, you'll see it'll just go down to the vendor level that it's planning at. I could activate other dimensions too if I'd like. But I need a forecast for this. There's a few different ways to do it. I can write my formula. I could have department heads hard code in numbers, or I could, instead of writing the formula, which it actually prompts you to write it, so it's really easy to pick up. I could go and say, hey, just give me a average of the last 2 months. Generate and apply. So now is another example of how you're using AI to even help you just write your formulas. So I can just tell it what to start doing. It'll start writing the formula for me. So it allows you to learn or get up to speed really fast. That's one way to forecast. Another way is, again, you can write the formulas yourself, or you can just say, you know what, I want to auto forecast these values. I'm going to use Abacum Intelligence to do this. Let's generate it. It's going to use some machine learning. It's going to look at your historicals. And so now it's put together a forecast. I can save, I can apply this, and then it'll automatically generate the forecast for me for R&D, right? So now you're thinking about how fast you can start to build a forecast, especially as you get started and you plug in all your information, you've got the data set up. You can come in and just say, I want to run a quick test, and I want to auto generate. I want to use Abacum Intelligence to forecast everything forward to kind of see what that's going to look like. And then I'll build my bottoms up model in another version. So it allows you to start to quickly get value from the system and start pressure testing your own assumptions against what the AI and machine learning is going to do against your historical data. All right, we've got about 20 minutes left. Jake, anything that you want to add to that?
No, I don't think so. I think you covered most everything.
Cool. I also saw some good questions come in too. And it looks like you've answered most of them, which is good. I'd say one question, can you name some competitors, explain the advantages of your system? I've been in the space for a long time and very familiar with the competitive landscape as well. I'd say when you think about kind of the next gen AI first platform, like specifically Abacum, big advantage is time to value, but also the ease of use too. We have a lot of folks that come to us that have trouble getting their department heads into the systems, right? Like collaborating and making it self-service. We've already looked at some examples there. And then also we're built on newer technology, which allows us to deploy a lot of these AI capabilities much faster and go to market with them much faster and make them, get feedback and make them very functional and useful for our customers too. So I think those are a few good examples. And then I think the integration layers, being able to connect to data so quickly. There's some other platforms where we had a client come to us and say, well, we expected it to be like 50 hours to just connect and get the data organized, because that's what we were used to in the past with another system we implemented in Abacum. They were connected, data organized in just a few hours, right? And now their model is getting built. So when you think about where your money's going, and the total cost of ownership and the time to value that you're getting, it's less on like the IT and the technical part and more on like just getting in and configuring the model, getting the reporting set up, and starting to get value as quick as possible. A couple other messages. What's the minimum size
Yeah.
of org that can handle the level of customization of complexity? And yeah, love that question. And that's also one of the reasons why I joined Abacum. I believe that we're making it much easier for fast growing companies, scaling companies to get into a platform at a price point that makes sense, but also from an ease of use perspective. So it's not overkill, right? If you're we have, again, I mentioned, typically it's like 100 to a couple thousand, but I see customers scaling companies that might raise a bunch of money and they're at 50 employees, but in a couple months they'll be at 100 or 75, right? And they're putting the right systems in place. They're able to get in and their implementation can be done in a few weeks. And their cost, their price point is also going to reflect that, and reflect their size of their organization too. Pricing can range. See, there's a question about ballpark pricing. Kind of depends on the size of your business and the number of the users, but you see pricing anywhere from 25 all the way up to we've got clients that are public companies that have a lot of users, right? So six-figure type of deals, but from a pricing perspective, that the lower end of the mid-market, right? I think we have good pricing and packaging, and we want to set it up to work well for our clients. And we can talk more about that offline too.
Yeah, and then Powell asked, how does the solution handle growing complexity as the company expands? I mean, what I would say there is as Ryan just touched on, I mean, there are customers who are 50 employees all the way up to thousands of employees, right? And that will obviously be correlated with, quantity of subsidiaries, departments, general complexity, right? If you're a multinational organization, you're going to have, international subsidiaries, you're going to have multi-currencies, you're going to be working across different countries with different laws, different tax laws, things like that. Versus maybe if you're just a US based or a single country based company, you're going to have maybe fewer employees. So the point is, right, is it's very scalable. It's very accommodating to changing circumstances. I can see one of the things that we run into as a partner the most is we work with a lot of private equity firms, and they're acquiring companies, obviously. So they're acquiring entities and they're layering in entire businesses into an existing model, right? And so we're having to layer in new companies, new departments, new subsidiaries. We're layering in new dimensions. If there's new products, we're layering in new currencies. We're also layering in potentially an entirely new chart of accounts, right? And all of those things are very, very common, given the world that we live in now with so much being bought up by private equity and so many acquisitions occurring. So absorbing those changes is very routine. Going back to the question around just different platforms. Again, I know we're here to talk about Abacum, of course, right? And we're biased. But I myself, having worked in FP&A, I've probably used 8 to 10 different platforms and implemented about half that many. I can tell you one of the major differences in some of the platforms is just the heaviness of the back end of actually absorbing changes to the business. Things like adding departments, like I said, adding subsidiaries, adding currencies. There's great platforms out there, but if you want to make those kind of changes, you need a full-time admin, and you also may even need scripting, right? You need literally someone on the IT side to actually write, code to get some of those changes absorbed into some of the bigger tools. And that's, I would say, definitely a huge standout for Abacum and why I wanted us to partner with them, because again, I see companies going through those changes a lot, and it can absorb those changes very quickly, very seamlessly.
Yeah,
Another question. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
yeah, I think if we need hands-on completing a specific view, calculation, etc. Yeah, absolutely. So when you go through implementation, a lot of times we have clients that'll go through it and it'll be a co-build, so they get good training throughout the process. We also have white glove to where it's like, I don't have time. Can you build it and then train me? So there's different approaches we can take. So being able to just create a quick calculation, you'll come out of that. That'll be one of the first things you learn. We also have a certification that you can go through. But if you're like, hey, I just want to talk to somebody, you can get on the phone immediately. They'll help you build out a calculation. They'll help you set up a new table. Um, Also, you might even find that our academy is extremely helpful. So some people like to be just like self-service first, and you can find anything in here. This thing is so robust. It provides you very, very detailed examples and videos on how to do anything within the platform, from building a KPI card, creating a calculation, whatever you need. Um, or it could even be like a video that you embed. So maybe it's your users. You want to remind them how to do things. You can see I've got a video that could be me explaining, hey, don't forget this is how you double click here and add in your budget, right? Or this is how you request a new head. Jake also talked about like, hey, after you get all this, you need your presentations. If you're not obviously inviting people into Abacum, you're still using slides or PowerPoint. Here's a great example. Like I've actually embedded my board deck into here, but you could have Abacum automatically update the numbers within your deck too. And I've seen some board decks that could be 100 slides, right? It can be very, very time consuming to manually update. So very tactical thing that goes from trivial to non-trivial pretty quick from a time savings perspective. Um, and then I'd say maybe last thing to show in the demo is just some other use cases that you might have. I think we took a look at a lot of like financials today, but again, we're pulling in the non-financial data too, and pulling that in from your revenue model or pulling it in from your CRM. Let me go back to the performance review here. And that could be pulling in the customer data, right, on revenue. Here's my revenue by product, drilling all the way down to revenue from SaaS or professional services. I've got entities set up, and then eventually, like here, I've set up like the granular, like all the way down to my customer level, right? So you can pull in the customer level data from your ERP plus your CRM. You can make sure that the system knows that it's now standardized, and you can see where that data is coming from too at any point in time. Measure it or use it for your forecast. All right, 10 minutes left. See, was there another question that came in? Nope, we're good. I'd say the last piece
Oh,
is
there's a question. What is the ENPS on the platform from Abacum's clients? I don't know if you have that handy. Net Promoter Score.
yeah. I don't know the Net Promoter Score off the top of my head. I know it's very high, but I don't know the specific number. But I can share that with you as a follow-up. And then also, you can go to G2 as well, like G2 Crowd, and there's probably over 100 reviews from customers on the G2 site. I think we're close to 5 stars there as well.
Yeah,
And then
just
also
checked.
we
It's
have
a 4.8.
4.8. Yeah, perfect.
Pretty
100,
good.
100 something reviews.
138, 133 reviews.
Mm-hmm. Is I also another Ivan, you asked like, is Abacum suitable for EU or is it mainly just focused on US? Yes, we have several clients based in Europe. To be even more specific, we've got companies across 40 different countries today. We also have partners like Jake that are in different continents too. So we have support across the globe. We are a global company, the headquarters in New York, big office in Barcelona, folks in London, in Canada, in Latin America. About 45% of our business is in EMEA today. The other 40%, 45% you could say is in the US. And then the rest of it is split between Latin America, APAC, and Africa. So again, I think that speaks to the flexibility of the platform and our ability to handle things like multi-currency and multinational companies really well. And I will now go back to my slideshow, and that was our product demo. we'll open it up for any additional Q&A too. I think we had one last poll if you want to pull that up as well. And then, hey, next steps. If you guys want more of a detailed demo that can be customized, we actually have a bunch of industry specific demos, so you can see something that looks just like your industry or talk to an industry specific expert. Jake's team also has lines of business in life sciences, SaaS, healthcare, so we partner very closely to bring in experts to help guide you on some best practices, not only around implementation, but how to think about maybe even forecasting and structuring some of your KPIs and your models moving forward. So. And there's our emails too. If you want, again, I run partnerships. Jake's one of the managing partners for E78, specifically for ERP and CPM. If you want to reach out just to connect and have any specific questions before you talk to sales or any other experts at our companies, we're more than happy to respond and get you any answers you need. And feel free to I would love to connect on LinkedIn too, so feel free to connect there as well. All right, Jake, anything else? Do we have any other
No.
questions? I'll take one last look here. I think there might be. I think we're good.
Yeah.
Great. Yep.
Needed 3 to 3 months to implement. G2 says these 3 months to implement. Yeah, it can take 3 months, definitely. We just went through one about 2 months. It can take 3 months depending on the complexity. It could take even a few weeks. It really depends on the complexity of what we're trying to do, the quantity of integrations, things like that. So if we're integrating with just one system, like your accounting system, that's very fast. If there's more, some customization, that may take a little bit of time. If we're focusing on just getting reporting stood up, I mean, one of the fastest ways I think to get value out of the platform is the reporting. Modeling and forecasting can be a little more complex, but reporting is huge, especially if you have monthly reporting packages that are, dozens of slides long, which we have a lot of clients that do. It can really speed up that process. But yeah, it can definitely take 3 months, but it can take two. It could take 4 if it's a bit longer for sure. But I think 2 to 2.5 months is a pretty good average from what I've seen at least.
Yeah, and I would also say I did one of the logos I think we showed earlier was Kajabi. I interviewed them in a case study, and their implementation, there's 800-person company. Their implementation took about 7 weeks total, but it was cool as I was interviewing them. It was probably within their 5th week, but they had already deployed specific use cases to where their accounting manager was super excited because some of the manual reporting that they have to do, they already had it live in like week 2, and they were already getting value out of the platform. And then they were kind of adding the next use case, right, and building on top of it. So when we think about getting you implemented, we also think about like what are some things where we can help get you some quick wins as soon as possible, and then have a good line of sight into like being done and helping you manage that project efficiently and effectively. All right, thank you everybody.